ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्. ओम शांति शांति शांति. नमस्कार my dear friends. I am going to tell you the story of Nachiketa and Lord Yamraja. The Nachiketa and Yama story is from the Upanishads, one of the oldest and most revered Indian scriptures. Nachiketa is supposed to have been the first seeker in the world, maybe the first significant one. One of the Upanishads starts with him. Nachiketa was a small boy. His father took a certain vow to perform a yaga, a sacred ritual where all the material possessions that you have, including your wife, your children, your house, your everything, you have to give it away as dana, charity, to all the rishis, the Brahmins and the other people. Then you will attain to spiritual bliss. This is a device somebody has set up in the tradition. So a few people take this vow for spiritual attainment. Nachiketa's father took this vow and he gave away all the sick cows, the useless property and everything that he did not want, which was a burden in one way or another, and made a big show of it, but he kept everything else that he really needed, including his 2 wives and children. Nachiketa saw this and he was very hurt. He saw that his father was not being sincere. His father made a vow that he will give away everything and attain spiritual bliss. But that man is playing tricks like everybody else. So Nachiketa went to his father and started talking about this to him. A small boy about 5 years of age, physically he was 5 years of age, but the boy had tremendous maturity. Nachiketa told his father, "What you have done is not right. If you did not want to give away everything, you should not have taken the vow. Once you took the vow, you better give it away. You have to give away everything. You tell me, to whom are you going to give me?" His father got angry and he said, "I am going to give you to Yama. Yama is the Lord of Death." So the boy took it very seriously and he prepared himself to go to Yama, and he went. Don't start thinking in terms of how could he have gone, with the body or without the body. That is not the point. He went. Yama was not there. He had gone visiting. He makes house calls, so he had gone visiting. For 3 days Nachiketa waited, a small boy without food, without water. He waited at Yama's doorstep. After 3 days Yama came back and he saw this little boy totally famished and tired, but fully determined. He was just sitting there, not moving. He had not even gone searching for food here or there. He was just sitting there waiting for him. So Yama was very moved by this boy's determination, waiting for 3 days without anything. So he said, "It is great. You have been waiting for 3 days. What do you want? I will grant you 3 boons. What you want?" So as Nachiketa sought the abode of Yama. The very of name of Yama strikes terror, for he is the supreme judge who rewards the virtuous and punishes the wicked. The wicked see only his outward terrible form, but the virtuous know that he is just and kind. That's why he is given the title of Dharma Raja, the Lord of Righteousness. He acts on the principle that in the moral as in the material world, action and reaction are equal and opposite. As a man sows, so shall he reap. He rewards the virtuous and punishes the wicked. When Nachiketa reached the abode of Yama, he found that Yama was not at home, nor did anyone else welcome him. There was no one to offer him the hospitality that was due to a guest. And for the 3 days and nights until King Yama returned, Nachiketa remained fasting. Yama felt grieved for this breach of hospitality. He who knew what the reign of law meant did not wish to be guilty of breaking the law of quest right. Yama received him with the customary formality of ancient times, and he offered him the reverence that he is due to a guest. Athithi Devo Bhava. The Vedas say that God himself may come in the guise of a guest. By way of atonement for having kept him waiting so long, Yama offered him 3 bones, one for each day of waiting. Nachiketa was charmed by the kindness and gentleness of Yama, having been brooding all the time upon the wrath of his father. Nachiketa requested Yama as his firstborn that his father might recognize him and take him back on his return from the abode of Yama. Nachiketa specially mentioned the term recognition, for ordinarily mortals cannot recognize spirits. Yama granted him the boon that was sought and heaved a sigh of relief. He told Nachiketa that his father would no longer be angry with him and would receive him as affectionately as ever before. Having been relieved of anxiety regarding his father, Nachiketa pondered for a while as to what he should ask as his second boon. When he saw the contrast between life in heaven and life on earth, he felt grieved to think of the various ills of earthly life as pain, disease, old age, hunger, and thirst, and the fear of death. Heaven was immune from all these. Nachiketa asked Yama not for himself but for the sake of suffering humanity. The technique of the fire sacrifice, which helps man to transcend the miseries of life and attain the felicity of heaven. Yama was pleased with the broad mindedness and liberal outlook of Nachiketa. Yama said to him, I am aware of that particular sacrifice which would lead mortals to attain the bliss of heaven. I will initiate you into the secret of its technique. As Nachiketa was endowed with a spiritual outlook and a bright intellect and was at once pure and sincere, he comprehended at once all that was taught. Yama was equally pleased with this young disciple and as a token of good will offered to name the particular sacrifice after Nachiketa himself. He also declared that whoever performed that particular sacrifice would realize the Virat Purusa manifested as Agni, Vayu, and Aditya, would realize all the benefits of initiation from his parents, and his spiritual guide would be liberated from the round of birth and death, though not in an absolute sense, and would attain the peace that is born of meditating upon the Virat Purusa. As the third boon of naming the sacrifice after Nachiketa was Yama's own voluntary gift, there still remained one more boon for Nachiketa to ask. He felt that there was apparently nothing more to ask. He was at peace with his father, and the happiness of heaven had been assured to him. Yet he felt some hidden want. He felt that without the knowledge of the self, whatever happiness we have is only external to us, and therefore cannot be nitya, our own and eternal. He requested Yama to let him know if there is an Atma apart from the body and the senses, and if so, what happens to the Atma after death. It was only Yama that could solve what is from the human end, the great enigma of life. This was more than Yama had bargained for. He never expected that a boy of such tender age would raise such a metaphysical problem. But the Guru does not impart knowledge to all and sundry. Yama wished to test the mental caliber of the boy before imparting to him the supreme secret that transcends both life and death. He raised all kinds of difficulties. He said that even the Devas are in doubt as to the ultimate reality, that is too abstruse for human understanding, and that he might as well choose something else. But Nachiketa was firm in his resolve. He would never have a better teacher, one more eminently fit to solve the great mystery. Although Yama was pleased within himself, he still wished to divert the attention of the boy by holding before him all kinds of attractive objects with which men, grown-up children, that they are enjoy themselves. He held up before him all the good things of life, such as wealth, youth, beauty, or whatever else satisfies the senses of power. But Nachiketa declined all that with thanks to him. They were merely in the nature of temptations. The very fact that he had met Yama was itself a guarantee that there would be no lack of the good things of life. He did not wish to miss his supreme opportunity. He remained firm in his original resolve. All that he sought was that supreme knowledge which would throw light on life's great problem, the value and destiny of the individual from the point of view of the Absolute. Nachiketa came out successful in the test which Yama imposed upon him. We are told that even sages and the Devas have at times succumbed to these temptations. It shows us how rare it is to find one who is intelligent and self-controlled and at the same time indifferent to worldly and heavenly enjoyment. Yama was highly pleased. He said to Nachiketa, "You are indeed fortunate. You have chosen the path of virtue and rejected the path of enjoyment. Each path leads one to the destined goal. Only the wise choose the path of virtue, which leads to liberation. Those who are otherwise wander hither and thither in a vain attempt to escape from themselves, and they fall again and again into my control. Few are the seekers, and fewer still those who attain self realization, for it is not by argument that the self is known. Listen attentively so that you may distinguish the self from the body and the mind. The self, the Atma, the highest refuge of all, pervades the universe and dwells in the heart of all. Those who are instructed in the self and who practice constant meditation attain that changeless and self-effulgent Atma. Do thou likewise, for bliss eternal lies before you. When Nachiketa saw that Yama was pleased to accept him as an aspirant after the spiritual life, he said to Yama, "Please instruct me in the knowledge of that which you have realized and which lies beyond all pairs of opposites such as virtue and vice, cause and effect, or the past, the present, and the future, and which is life's supreme value." Yama said to him, "What you seek is known only from the Vedas and the Upanishads. Brahmacharya and tapasya form the means to it. The one word that stands as the symbol of that which you seek is the word Om. It represents both the pra and apra aspects of Brahma. He who knows what this symbol indicates attains Brahmaloka. He realizes that the self is devoid of birth and death, that it neither grows nor decays, and that the accidents of life do not affect it. The self transcends time and space. What is great is not too great for it to comprehend, and what is small is not too small to escape attention. It is the self of all. The heart cave is the abode. The Atma illumines itself, its presence gives significance to all else. Lost in the happiness and in sorrow, one may wander a long distance in quest of it, and find it seated as the unmoving witness of all. It is Brahma Vidya, the knowledge of the Absolute. All else is the Apara Vidya, that which is not supreme knowledge, even though it includes the knowledge of all the sacred books and all the sciences. As long as the highest is not realized, it will still fall short. Therefore, Apara Brahma is Brahma as conditioned by manifestation, also known as Karya Brahma or Hiranyagarbha. Parabrahma is the unconditioned aspect of the Absolute. The question of the existence of the self is answered by declaring that Brahma is neither born nor cease to be. Brahma is the Atma of all. The doubt of Nachiketa as to what happens after death is solved. The sun sheds light on other objects, it reveals its own existence. Therefore, no external agency is required to reveal its existence. So, Atma undergoes no modification, though it sets everything else in motion. No amount of book learning, no intellectual acumen can help one to realize it. It can be realized only by those who surrender themselves to it and who make themselves worthy of grace by desisting from all that is sinful, who engage themselves in the practice of perfection by constant meditation and renounce the benefit that accrues from meritorious deeds. Yama continued his discourse. He said to Nachiketa, "Let us take the familiar example of the chariot and the charioteer. We may say that the body is the chariot and the self, the Atma, the charioteer. Continuing the analogy a little further, we may say that intellect is like the bridle, the mind is like the reins, the senses are as it were the horses that travel along the path of enjoyment. When the senses take the lead and turn unmanageable, the higher faculties are dragged along helplessly, and the aspirant cannot escape the cycle of birth and death. Pitiable indeed is his position, where the intellect controls the senses and guides them like well trained horses obedient to the will of the master. That is the path of liberation. He who travels along that path never returns to the world of relative values. To him, the relative values are no longer hindrances, they become means of self-transcendent. The senses give place to the values of the mind to the intellect, and the intellect to the absolute in its manifest form, and the manifest to the unmanifest and unconditioned. It is the unconditioned aspect of the absolute that is called the Purusha. The Purusha is the self of every being. It is not manifested but realized through meditation. The wise man is the one who keeps on along the path of discrimination until self-realization is attained. Awake, arise and stop not until the goal is reached. It is a path hard to traverse, sharp as a razor's edge. It lies beyond the realm of the senses, but he who attains the goal knows that which is changeless, without beginning and without end, eternal and beyond all pairs of opposites. To know it is itself to be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. This knowledge blessed him that gives him and receives. There is no real contradiction in its nature. The apparent opposition is due to different attributes. The eternal witnessing consciousness, hence referred to as Kutastha Nitya, as it is present in all the stages of awareness, such as waking, dreaming, and sleeping. The means to the attainment of knowledge is pointed out. The Atma should be understood only as the Atma and as nothing else. Therefore, external aids cannot be much value. The way to attain is negatively by desisting from evil and positively by self-surrender. The reference here is to the Jivatma, the embodied self. When the Jivatma identifies itself with the body, mind and senses, it is also regarded as a reaping the fruit of action. From the point of view of Indian philosophy, the intellect is put on the master side of things. It should be made pure by the practice of austerity and meditation. It is only then it can comprehend the Atma. In the chain of causation, what is gross proceeds from what is subtle. The subtle is the cause, the gross is the effect. The effect is an unfolding of the hidden purpose. It is potentially contained in that which causes it. All manifestation is an unfolding of the first cause. As long as the Jiva and Jagat are regarded as real, Brahma is regarded as the creator, as the manifest aspect of Brahma. But there is only one thing and no second. Moreover, Brahma undergoes no modification. Therefore, what is regarded as creation is only apparent, not real, hence unmanifest. The manifest is of value to us because it reveals the unmanifest. Nachiketa was all attention. Half his problem was solved. He knew clearly the goal towards which all life tends. But he did not know so clearly the means to it. But Yama could read the mind of Nachiketa. He knew clearly that if knowledge is the goal, knowledge is also the means to it. He therefore said to Nachiketa, as long as the senses directed towards external objects, the self is not perceived. The aspirant after immortality should not allow his senses to run riot. He should direct them inward towards the self, for it is by the presence of the self that the senses function. To know the self is to know Brahma, for Brahma is the self of all. That is why the knower of Brahma becomes one with Brahma. Him the yogis realize by meditation, the priest by sacrificial offerings, and the elemental forces by the bond of obedience to his will. It is by the mind alone that Brahma should be realized, not as different from oneself, but as one's inmost self. That is the way to attain fearlessness. The best way of comprehending that which is everywhere is to comprehend it in its oneself. Be thou established in that Angushta Purusha, whose seal is the heart and who is the eternal witnessing consciousness. The Supreme Being or the soul of the universe by which everything is filled. The means of realize the Absolute is here pointed out, for there is no other cause in which he could merge. The external objects cannot perceive themselves. It is only by the help of the self that the Antakarna recognize form, taste, color and other properties of matter. Identification with the senses will lead one to reap the fruits of action. Dissociation from them will lead to knowledge. In the first case, God is the dispenser of the fruits of action. In the second case, He is our own self. The mind becomes the instrument of knowledge when rendered pure by austerity and tapas, so that one may not be subject to the repeated cycle of birth and death. The cavity of the human heart is said to be of the size of a thumb. As Brahma is realized here, he is described as the Angushta Purusha. Nachiketa felt interested. He thought to himself, however hard the path may be, there is still a path to it. Yama exhorted him to follow that path. He said, the Purusha, the supreme consciousness, is the Purishayana, the dweller in the citadel with 11 gates, that is the human body, manifest everywhere as the animating principle of the entire cosmos. He exists as the Supreme Being in His own nature. Know it to be eternal, pure consciousness, absolute and ever free, waking the earth-born clouds, but the Atma, the self of all, remains unsullied by them, like the radiant sun. Know himself to be the ordainer of all, who in relation to the external world is the eternal cause and in himself is pure consciousness. Thus exhorted by Yama, Nachiketa learnt that all things live, move and have their being him, and that he is nearer than hands and feet, for he is our very self. By knowing the eternal, he attained bliss eternal. Thanks to Nachiketa, the pathfinder, it is possible to declare that the knower of the Supreme Being becomes immortal, becomes liberated. This is what is called Avasthatraya, the three stages of awareness. To know Brahma, one must realize Brahma as the Sakshi, witness of all these levels of consciousness. As long as one does not realize Brahma, one remains in the realm of Avidya. No modification as creation does not imply any change in the Atma. The idea of Atma as many is eliminated. So, this is actually known as the Atma Vidya or the Brahma Vidya obtained from our Upanishads. So I conclude this wonderful video. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Namaskar my dear friends. Thank you. Namaste. Let us know something more from this story. The first thing Nachiketa said was, my father is in extreme greed. He wants material possessions right now. So you bless him with all the material possessions that he can have. Let him become a king. Okay, it was granted. The second boon he asked for was, I want to know what kind of karmas, what kind of yagas I have to do to attain the Vedic literature. Always talks in terms of yagnas and yagas. The whole literature is like that. Everything is in terms of yagas and yagnas. So Yama taught him what he had to do. Then Nachiketa asked him, what is the secret of death? What happens after death? So Yama said, no, this question you take back. You can ask me anything you want. You ask me for kingdom. If you want, I will give it to you. Riches if you want, I will give you. All the pleasures in the world I will give you. He goes on offering, what do you want? You tell me. All the pleasures in the world I will give you. You take them, but this one question you withdraw. Nachiketa says, what will I do with all of them? You have already told me all these things are transient. I have already understood that all activity, everything people are involved in is meaningless. Simply it seems to be there. It is not the reality. So what is the point in you giving me more riches? It will just be a trap for me. I don't want anything. You just answer my question. In many ways, Yama tried to avoid this question. He said, even the gods do not know the answer for or this question. I cannot give it to you. Nachiketa said, if that is so, if the gods do not know this answer and only you know, then you must definitely give me the answer. He would not leave him. So once again Yama left him there and went visiting for months. He just wanted to avoid this boy somehow. He wanted to get rid of him, but the boy just stuck around for many months. And they say right on the doorstep of Yama's domain, he attained to his full enlightenment. He got the answers or everything he had to know in the existence and dissolved himself. He was the first seeker and he is always used as the best example. A 5-year-old boy with that kind of determination, who did not fall or for a chocolate or a visit to Disneyland or anything. He wanted that, and that's all is. When a person is like that, there is no need for a path for him because the end is here itself. It is not on the top of Velinagiri Hills. Only when it is not here, it is on Veliangiri Hill, and we will all have to slowly climb it. When you are like Nachiketa, there is no need for a path for you. It is already here. There is nowhere to go. It is very much here. Now the whole purpose of doing everything that we are doing here is to create the intensity. That craving should become so strong, so powerful that God cannot stay away and the divine cannot avoid you anymore. It is not that the divine tries to avoid you, but this mind and ego tries to screen the reality from your eyes in so many millions of ways. Millions of tricks are played. Whether you walk the path of karma, jnana, kriya or bhakti, it is your intensity which keeps you going, not the path itself. No practices or kriyas will do anything when there is no intensity. In turn, when there is intensity, the practices have the power to move you like a different dimension. It is not the kriya as such which will transform you, it is your intensity. When you have this intensity, the kriya is a tremendous sport that enhances it more and more. That is the whole purpose of doing the practices. Whichever path you walk by itself, the practice is not going to make you realize anything unless you have intensity. If you half-heartedly love someone, there is no love. It is either 100% or 0. If you think you can love someone 99%, you have not known love at all. The same goes for any kind of action. If you do not perform your action 100%, it is meaningless. It is not going to produce anything great. At the most, it will earn you food. Unless your action is 100%, it cannot transform you. Unless your kriya is 100%, it cannot transform you. Unless your love is 100%, it cannot transform you. It may be a device to get something like a barter sometimes, but in existential terms, nothing happens. So, if we want to realize self and get liberation, we must have 100% resolve and firm determination. With half determination and half resolve, we cannot achieve our destination. Thank you.